Hello everyone, my name is Stephanie Victoria. I'm doing this Tips for Success. If you subscribe to my channel, you see that I posted a transcription video. This is for the MAP course, Medication Administration Program. Please do not watch this video until you are done with the certification course. This is designed for you to review prior to going to sit for the state exam. I basically took a compilation of areas where my students have made mistakes, and I'm compiling that to present it to you. If you have not completed the course, or if you're in the beginning, it's simply not going to make any sense. Okay, so like and subscribe down at the bottom. Follow me on YouTube for more videos like this. All right. So tip number 1, you'll have a scenario, okay? So this video is going to be focusing on the MedPass, and in doing that, we are going to review some components of transcription, but most of it is tips for success for the MedPass. Remember the MedPass, you're checking your 3 rights, your 3 checks. You're doing your 3 checks, reviewing your 5 rights, okay? So 3 checks, reviewing 5 rights, and a lot of people, they make a mistake because they don't realize that's what they're doing. And so when they go to the state, the person will say, show me the 5 rights, and they freak out because they're like, oh, I learned the 3 checks. It's one and the same, okay? So I want to make that connection for you here. All right, and so when you get the scenario, you need to go to the med sheet, all right? You need to go to the medication sheet in order to find the correct med. This is the first tip, all right? Tip number 1, it's not the doctor's order. The scenario will say, for example, David Cook, which we have here, and you'll be able to see it more clearly. March 3rd, YR at 8 p.m. or something to that effect. The doctor's order will not necessarily give it to you the time. The doctor's order will say 3 times a day, or twice a day, or daily. Every once in a while, you do get a doctor order that lists out specifically the time. You know you should have already memorized your MAP times. So that's why you go to the medication sheet in order to get the correct medication. Now, also tip number 2, when you come to the medication sheet to find the correct medication, make note of both names, generic and brand, okay? That's a big tip. Some people get so nervous that they're like, okay, David Cook, Tramadol, and when they're going through the box, they see Ultram, and they're like, I can't find Tramadol, when they had the right medication in their hand, but they were just so nervous. So I tell people from right here, just say, I'm looking for David Cook, Tramadol, Ultram, so that whichever name you see first on the pharmacy label, you can be confident that that's the medication. The same thing with the second thing, generic phenobarbital luminol. All right, make note of both names so that you don't get yourself confused, because remember, nerves get the best of us when you're doing your MedPass. All right, so I told you tip 1, when you get the scenario, you go find the med sheet. It's not the doctor's order. If you go to the doctor's order, you will get tripped up, okay? When you come to this med sheet, you're gonna make note of the patient's name, and the patient's name, this is a tip as well, because for some reason on all other documents, the name is usually at the upper left-hand corner. It messes people up because on the med sheet, the name is down on the bottom left. And so some people completely forget that. That's a tip as well. And then another tip 3, make note of both names, generic and brand, so you don't mess yourself up when you go into the secure lockbox. You know what med you're looking for, okay? So now you take out the medication, you ensure you have the correct medication. All right, so you get to check 1. Now, another thing, because I teach students to go to the med sheet to make sure they're getting the correct med, and I just explained to you why, they stay on the med sheet and start doing the checks. And remember, that's not the case. How the book flips, once you go to the med sheet and identify the correct med, you have to turn back and now go to the doctor's order. Because remember, check 1 is between the doctor's order and the pharmacy label. So here on the doctor's order, you see the client's name, David Cook, all right? And so based on the scenario, let's pretend we're doing this one, the luminal one, all right? Daily in the evening, the scenario would have said something 8 p.m. So you know that it's luminal. And so another tip that people mess up is that they, especially for my non-native English speakers, if they can't pronounce something correctly, they get all twisted up just trying to pronounce it correctly. The test is not if you phonetically say it correct, it's just that clear that you are reading off the correct med. So just have that in your back of your mind. This goes for anybody. Don't start fumbling over how to pronounce it. However you say it is how you say it, as long as it's clear that it is the correct med you're talking about. So that's another tip. You would read off David Cook, luminol 97.2 milligrams by mouth daily in the evening. Now, for the life of me, there's students who always want to shorten something. There is no artistic side in this. I tell how my students, and they get a laugh out of it, if you're artistic, you do that on your own time. You are learning to be robotic. So what we tell you to read is simply just read through that. Don't abbreviate, don't add extra words. Students start saying, David Cook came in and sat down, and you're gonna mess yourself up, all right? You just say David Cook, luminal, 97.2 milligrams by mouth daily in the evening, okay? And that's 5 rights right there. And then you come to the pharmacy label. So check 1's between the doctor's order or HCP order and pharmacy label. All you're reading is right here on the pharmacy label. You're not reading anything else. David Cook, phenobarbital, 32.4 milligrams, IC luminal, say it. Take 3 tablets by mouth, once daily in the evening. People, again, start reading the phenobarbital. They either get hung up on how to pronounce it, or for some reason they don't say 32.4. They kind of feel like they don't need it, or they won't say the IC luminal. Once you start giving yourself leeway, like I can say this, I can't say that, you're going to mess up. What I've highlighted for you here is what exactly you read. Take 3 tablets by mouth once daily in the evening. And I really feel that people always want to kind of test the limits and see if they could abbreviate or shorten it, or now is not the time. You want to pass and become MAP certified. Okay? So check 2 and all other checks will be between the pharmacy label and the med sheet. Okay? So check 1 is the only thing that is the doctor's order, and then you put that away. You're done with it. Check 2 now is between the pharmacy label and med sheet. So again, I've highlighted to you. And then another thing, I think people just get tired of saying the same thing over and over again. And so they kind of just feel like, well, I said it, do I have to say it again? Listen, you don't want to keep retaking this class. Just read it off. Now, check 2, here's another tip where people will make an error. Again, remember I said that kind of everything, the patient's name has been somewhere in the upper left of whatever document. The med sheet, you have to make a note that when it comes to the med sheet, the name is on the bottom left. People are failing because of that, and they're like, I did everything correctly. But indeed, when you said it, you did not on the med sheet say David Cook again. Most people say David Cook, phenobarbital, 32.4 milligrams, IC luminal, take 3 tablets by mouth once daily in the evening, and they come right over to the grid and start reading generic phenobarbital brand luminal because they forget that the name's on the bottom. So that is a huge tip right there, okay? So if you've got to flag it, put it in red, and you don't know why you failed, it might have been because of that. So when you get to the med sheet, always remember to go down to the bottom left. That's where the patient's name is. Because remember, you're reviewing the 5 rights. So patient name, right med, right dose, right route, right frequency. That's a tongue twister, okay? Or right time. Frequency and time are synonyms. Another tip, again, I swear it's because you all want to just try to do it your own way. Read in this grid like you read from a book, left to right. Why do I say that? If you start hopping, jumping up and down, you're gonna forget something in this box here. So when I say left to right, generic phenobarbital brand luminal, strength 32.4 milligrams, dose 97.2 milligrams, amount 3 tabs, root mouth, frequency once daily, okay? Read it exactly how it is, left to right, and that way that will avoid you jumping up and down. So that is a huge tip. So I'm losing track of the tips. I think that's tip number 5 or 6. That's a huge tip where some people start trying to read up and down and forget to say dose, or if they hop in, they forget to say strength. Don't complicate your life. Just go left to right. Okay. Check 3, again, remember I said that moving forward, you have the same documents. So one thing I didn't say, after check 2, remember check 2 is when you prepare or pour the medication, you don't give it. Now a tip I should have said from the very start, say out loud check 1. You don't sound silly because you're nervous and you mix up. You forget if I'm on check 2 or check 3. And so if you give the med after check 2, remember that's a failure, because after check 2 is when you prepare or pour the med. Check 3, now you're going to do everything again, and after check 3, you give the med. But when nerves get into it, you literally just forget what check you're on. So I tell people to say check 1 and do their check, check 2 and do their check, check 3. I tell people to say it. That will help you remember what check you're on. Again, this is repetition. Read left to right. This is exactly what you're reading. And when I say exactly what you're reading, don't start 3 tabs, evening, and forget to say by mouth once daily. You know, read it how it is exactly. Come to the med sheet. Remember the patient's names down on the bottom left. Remember, on the grid, read left to right. Left to right. Don't try to get fancy or do anything else. So after check 3 is when you give the med. They want you to gesture and remember to say the client's name, because everyone has the right to know what medication they're taking. David Cook, here is your luminal, whatever. Now, another tip too is that, for example, people get so excited and nervous, they have the right med, they're saying everything correctly, but they don't pay attention to how many pills they pop, right? So remember, this is 3 tablets. So I keep telling people 15 minutes is a long time. If you take 8 minutes to do it, you don't get a better grade if you take 3 minutes to do it, right? It's not scored like that. It's pass fail. You don't get extra points for finishing it in 4 minutes. So take your time. Check 2, right? When you read it, when you read off 3 tabs, you're supposed to pop 1, 2, 3. So you could have given the right med to the right patient, but if you gave too many pills, that's an overdose, right? So you will fail. If you give under, you underdose. They didn't get what the doctor ordered, so you will fail. So you always have to pause to make sure that you pop the correct amount of pills, okay? I have seen a student, you know, get to this 3rd check before they give it to the patient, and they're like, oh, I popped 1 when I needed 2. You could just pop it, you know what I mean? And you wouldn't have failed. But if you go and give the wrong dose, either too many or too little, you would have failed. All right, so that's a tip in itself. Everyone is so focused on making sure they read the correct thing. Make note of how many pills you're supposed to be popping, preparing, administering, whatever word you want to use. I've seen people forget the silent check. The silent check, you're supposed to just move with your finger what you would be reading, just with your finger, don't say anything. But I think because it's silent, people they start just putting their finger anywhere. Like if I'm given phenobarbital, I'm looking at tramadol or something. So don't get lazy on this step, just do it. Glide your finger across what you would have read, okay? Then you get to documentation. I got cut off there, the video is probably a little choppy, but the only thing I want to say about documentation, most people don't forget to put their little initial in the correct box. Most people get that right. In the count book, usually when you go to the state, it is a double out control countable med that's in the count book because they want to make sure you can go to the count book. A tip there, and I don't have it on the screen here, a tip there is go to the index. Don't get excited because you see David Cook or whatever patient, because remember some of them have 2 medications. So again, on your count book is a cause to pause and make sure, yeah, I found David Cook, but make sure I'm really turning to the correct page, which is the phenobarbital and not the tramadol. Okay, so that's a last tip where students might make an error there, and usually they go to the right patient but the wrong med because the patient has 2 meds. Then when you go through, as I'm training, you get to the page, you make sure it's the right med. Don't forget to the amount given. So you have amount on hand is digits. Amount given, you have to spell that out in letters. So here it was 3, T-H-R-E-E, 3, and the amount left is digits, okay? So I can't show you an example because it's all gonna depend on your blister pack and if your blister pack is accurate or not. I haven't seen people, usually when I do pass the certification, now in this virtual environment, the same people who train you are the ones you're usually going back to do the virtual skills portion. I make sure my blister packs are accurate and no missed bubbles because I don't want to mess the students up. But you know, if the bubbles missed, count is off and then you're going to have to individually count it. So to recap, the biggest thing is that you go to the med sheet to obtain the correct med. When you do that, make sure that you don't start the first check with the med sheet. You start it with the doctor's order and pharmacy label. People usually get that check correct. Check 2 and all other checks are between pharmacy label and med sheet. The biggest thing is on the med sheet. On the med sheet, trust me, this gets a lot of people. The name is on the bottom left. All right. In the grid, read left to right. Don't get fancy. After check 2, you prepare. At that step, you make sure you pop the correct number of pills, tablets, pills, capsules, whatever you want to say. You do check number 3. Again, between the med sheet and the pharmacy label, you administer the med. Such and such, David Cook, here's your whatever this med is, I'll observe you for swallowing. Check 4 is silent, but still make sure you glide your fingers over the correct areas. And then with the documentation, people document usually on the med sheet correctly. On the count book, another pitfall in the count book is that they go to the right patient but the wrong med because the patient has 2 meds. So watch that. The amount you gave, meaning how many you prepared, administered, whatever you want to say, that column is written out. The word is spelled out. It's not in digits like the other 2. Don't forget to sign. You double lock, wash your hands, and that's done. So I think I've touched on all of the pitfalls and where I've seen people make errors. And so again, I have a transcription video that people typically like, and I hope this helps, and good luck with passing your certification.